Hey JD, thanks for joining us today from Wellington. Obviously, you're a veteran tech leader in New Zealand, having run Raygun, I think, for about 15 years plus now, which is pretty exciting. I guess we'll just start off easy. Did you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and about Raygun?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. Real pleasure to be here. So I've been building businesses for 18 years at this point. I started building my first sort of real business, I guess you'd call it, when I was 23, called Mindscape. Built, I think it's about 14 products over the years and sold them to people. We built various businesses and sold them. But at the sort of core, I'm just really passionate about the power of technology to really change and improve both generally living conditions, but also the opportunity to be able to bring New Zealand, up a level. And I think technology provides a really, really key way for us to do that from here, given we are so far away from the rest of the world. And then sort of to answer your core question more closely to home, in more recent years, we've been building our company under the Raygun brand. And what Raygun does is it tracks software issues in other people's code. So for a non-technical person, you can kind of think of us as building the black box flight recorder for software. We will tell the builders when it blows up, when it's going slow, when it's delayed, all of that sort of stuff, and help them understand where those problems lie and how to fix them quickly. And so we've got more than 1,000 organizations worldwide using our products to improve their user experience. We're 92% export-led, so most of our customers are not here in New Zealand, which is really cool because it means that at any one point we're processing just billions and billions of data points for customers around the world.
Yeah, that's very exciting, and 92% export-led. That's a pretty great example of a B2B SaaS product going global, right? It's a big part of New Zealand's economy and obviously a really big sector that's growing at the moment as well. Which is why I'm so keen to chat to you today about your take on AI and Raygun's involvement in AI as well. Something that you've talked a little bit about on LinkedIn and other channels is AI Week at Raygun. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, JD?
Yeah, sure. So AI Week at Raygun came about in May last year. We had our annual kickoff, and to be honest, I was sort of struggling a little bit with where I set the direction for the company. ChatGPT had become super popular. It was super evident, I think, to everybody that things had changed, but we hadn't had a moment yet to catch our breath and really be able to think through what are the ramifications, what are the implications of this new technology. And so while I was enjoying myself exploring this technology, playing with it at home, we really needed to level up within Raygun. And I've always been proud of the fact that Raygun is a cutting-edge technology firm. You know, we're not building CMSs and things like that. Not that they're not important, but we really like to push the envelope. And so to say, hey, there's this new technology. We want to be able to both take advantage of it within our business, as well as be able to take advantage of it within our products to help our customers. And so we set up this week-long session called AI Week at Raygun. We are fortunate to be in the position where we could have the whole team take the week off effectively. Still did customer support, but we didn't do any of our other work. And what we did was we made sure that we included the entire organization. So, AI is not just for nerds. That's one of the huge mistakes that I'm seeing some organizations make. It's going to affect everybody. It's kind of like pretending in the 90s that the internet would only affect software developers. It's like, no, this is going to affect everybody. So we need to take everybody on the journey. And so we kicked off that week. And the way that I started it was in the first 4 hours, we got everybody to do a test. And what we got them to do was the Raygun software development test. So when we're hiring software developers, we would give them this test, and then we judge a little bit on how well they can code the solution to it. And this meant that everybody in the company had to do that test, even the people who don't write code, designers, customer success managers, finance people. And I'm pleased to say that everybody effectively did our test by lunchtime. And that was a really huge moment, I think, where there was this aha for so many people within the team, because it was like, hang on a minute, we have a hardcore engineering culture with a fairly challenging onboarding test, and I don't even know how to code, and I can now pass the test. Right. And I think that's the piece that some people miss with AI is it's like, well, it's democratizing experience and skill, right? It's suddenly the barriers to entry have evaporated. So we had that went super well. And then we kicked into projects. And so we ran a range of projects. These were cross-functional teams. We didn't want the same people working together. There wasn't any Jira. There was no normal development processes or anything like that. And the teams had to build projects across that week and demonstrate them at lunchtime on Friday with each other. I got to say, I was blown away by just how far the team took their ideas. So an example of just one, this is just one of the tests out of, I think we ran 7 projects through this week, was an AI system that had been indexed on our own data to understand faults and things that had happened in the past. It just understood our corporate data. We put this in a local large language model, so this was not with OpenAI. And then the team could ask it questions and say, hey, was there, an incident in February? And the system would return and go, yeah, there was a problem in February. There was a certificate issue with this back-end server. It was down for this many minutes, and it was resolved by this person. And that alone is kind of like mind-blowing to be able to just ask the AI and get this answer. However, what the team also did was that they put a model in front of it to do voice to text. So you could talk to the system and ask that question, not just type it. And then they also used a text to speech model in order to have the system answer back. And that's something that really blew my mind was, hang on, at the start of this week, we hadn't really used this technology at all. By the end of the week, we had a computer that we could talk to that could answer our business questions and could talk back to us, just like Jarvis out of the Iron Man films. What an incredible pace of technology and achievement, to be able to do that in a singular week. And so overall, at the end of this week, we sort of said, did this work? And it did. We had a wonderful week. Everybody had a really great time. I think everybody was a little bit surprised at just how much they could get done with this technology. And it leveled up the understanding a wee bit of how to work. So ultimately, I had set the goal at the start to say, primarily, I just want to be able to have a high fidelity conversation about AI with my team. And at the moment, I can't. And that's not because I know it all. Absolutely not. It's actually that all of us will have different interpretations and different understandings. And if we can then have a dialogue around that, we're going to be able to make better decisions on how to leverage AI within our organization. And to that end, I think was a huge success.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's pretty brave as well, taking a whole week off work for the whole team just to explore something new. And it sounds like the output of that was really fantastic as well. How do you, moving forward, see AI becoming a bigger part of Raygun?
Yeah, it's a great question. So how can AI become a bigger piece within Raygun? The way I've been looking at it is sort of threefold. So there is internal use. How do we use AI to actually just operate our business better? And that's something that's on my mind when I'm talking with the internal teams, when I'm talking with Lana, our COO, we're thinking, how can we leverage this technology more? Within the product, so the customer perspective, I see this as 2 phases. There is one which I call AI sprinkles. Everybody's doing this right now. It's to tack on some sort of chat window into your app and ask it a question. And you know what? That's great. That's kind of like, I remember in 1995 when it was like, you can contact us by ringing this number or maybe use this fancy email thing. And that's kind of how AI sprinkles feels, is like we've put this in. But we're really also looking at what are our new products? What are going to be the things that we try to build from an AI first perspective? The products that couldn't exist if AI didn't exist. And they're much more than sprinkles. They're the ones that are going to really impact our customers, their productivity, their effectiveness, and all of that. So we're kind of looking on those 3 lenses, and across all 3 of them, we have work in progress. So for example, inside the organization, we are experimenting with AI around both image generation. We're also exploring it for analyzing data for us. So for example, we have a lot of reports that come out of our BI team. Suddenly team members can put those CSVs and things like that into an AI system and actually ask for the insights directly This is super powerful because these team members, maybe they're not experts at writing SQL or using these tools. So we're getting some value out of those as well. And then while we won't talk about it a whole lot today, we've just established our plan for what is our AI first product going to be. And that's going to be kicking off development very shortly.
Oh, that's really exciting. I can't wait to hear more about that. And just diving back a little bit, AI sprinkles has to be one of the best ways to describe a lot of the activity that companies are doing with AI at the moment. Obviously, like anything that's new, you really do have to dip your toe in, and understandably, everyone will do a little bit of AI sprinkles first, right, before diving deeper into those waters. And I guess, what would your advice be to any company, or I'll just start that again. What would your advice be to any tech company that wants to dip their toe into AI? How should they get started?
Yeah, it's a great question about how to get started with AI. To be honest, I know we're talking as two people that operate within the tech industry, and it's really important to understand that in our world, it might feel like AI is already here. Judgment Day was yesterday, like that sort of thing. And then I find I go and talk to what I would call normal people, outside of the tech industry. And you realize that the general penetration of AI outside of the tech space is actually fairly minimal. It's to use ChatGPT. And so what I've been talking to other business operators about is really kind of through that lens of the AI week is, okay, we do know this technology is here. We do know it can have a massive impact. First things first is kind of like with the AI week, acknowledging that no one's an expert and that it's okay to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of goofy time with this stuff. So I'll give you 3 examples that you can practically roll out in your business today. The first one, and I found this super powerful for me, is most browsers will have the ability to sort of go to the menu and create a shortcut or turn a website into an app. Really, it's just a browser window without the Chrome on it. And I set up ChatGPT and have it pinned to my taskbar so that I remember to go to ChatGPT, because I just kept going back to Google, right? I've spent 30 years of my life typing Google in, and that's how I get answers. And so a big part is actually just to remind yourself to use these tools as they are right now. What I've personally found with that is that it made me realize that my way of problem solving is normally to think in my head, okay, I need to achieve X, what are the steps? And then go to Google for each of the steps. And now with ChatGPT and similar tools like Claude, I can just express the intent and have it do all of those steps for me. So the first thing is to make it visible. Secondly, open the checkbook. GPT-4 is a lot better than the free version. It's $20 a month. Pay for it for your entire team. Seriously, just pay for it. GPT-4 is where you can upload like a CSV and ask questions. It's the one where you can upload a photo. Here's a cool party trick, Ryan. Take a photo of your cupboard, and then you upload it into ChatGPT-4, just the picture, and you say, given the ingredients in my cupboard, what would be a nice, easy meal I should make tonight? And it will recognize the ingredients you have and give you a curated recipe for what you could cook. Like, that's the one that just, And to that end, what I say within businesses is set up some channels in Slack. Have an AI one where you're just sharing some news about what people are seeing. Encourage people to be a bit goofy. In our case, we had some folks set up, funny avatars of themselves in Slack using the image generation capabilities of GPT-4. What I tend to find is adults, and we all know this, kids pick up technology so fast. And as we get older, we more or less get more and more afraid that we're going to break stuff, that we're going to do it wrong. So partly you want to create this culture that's like, it's okay to break stuff. It's okay to have a play. It's okay to be goofy, have fun. This is not serious business yet. And really create that culture within your organization of experimenting with it. My last tip, again, one to fight muscle memory. And it might sound a little bit harsh, but one of my favorite things is seeing a team member post a question in Slack, and I'll just quickly go and paste that into GPT-4, get the answer, and I paste the screenshot in, to be like, hey, you could have done this without distracting your teammates. You could have asked the expert in the box, because again, it's just remembering that we have this amazing resource in the toolbox now.
Yeah, those are all really great answers, and I'll have to use that AI party trick, as you described it. Probably just my own personal cooking, because I'm often stumped about what to have for dinner. That's really interesting, particularly around just some of the more simple things like bookmarking ChatGPT. I've got, looking at my favorites bar here, I've got Google, but I don't have ChatGPT up, and I can, I use it all the time, but obviously just creating that barrier to actually go to the platform, results in you using it a lot less. Mm-hmm. Coming back to LLMs, what are your sort of top favorite LLMs to use?
It's a good question about what are the best LLMs to use. Personally, I'm finding Claude Opus, that's the paid version of Claude, is phenomenal. Whether it's coding tasks or really long engagements where it's really important that it understands innately the way the conversation has unfolded, absolutely, in my experience personally, is beating my experience with GPT-4. That's not to say GPT-4 is bad. It's really, really good. I just really like the Claude Opus model. We've also been doing some work internally with what are known as open source models, which might be a little bit more advanced than maybe some of the people are watching. But if you are playing with open source models, I highly encourage you to check out the Mistral and Mixtral models that you can run on your own machines and have a play with that. From some of the testing we're doing at Raygun, we're getting very, very good performance out of those models.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so just building a little bit more around the server that you've built to self-host some of your models, do you want to just tell some of our audience what the difference is and some of the benefits of using your own model versus using a model like ChatGPT?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what is the benefit of using an open source model versus a closed source model? So first we want to understand what is actually the difference, right? So a closed source model is like GPT-4. You ask it a question, you put your text in a box, you get an answer. You don't have any access to the underlying data. You don't have any access to the weights. You don't even really have to concern yourself with how it operates at all. While an open source model is where somebody has done the training, they've trained these models up, and they'll let you download those models onto your computer. These typically vary in size from sort of about 3 gigabytes through to hundreds of gigabytes in size, and they can require quite immense compute resource in order to do the self-hosted models. Having said all of that, though, the question would be, why would you use open source versus closed source? It's important to note most people will quite happily use the closed source ones. That is the easy path. Open source is far more interesting if you are a software development team or you're looking at how you might leverage these things. And there are two sort of key benefits to that. One might be a lower cost of operation. So if you're calling the APIs, for example, from OpenAI, they can get quite costly. You may find it's more cost effective to host open source models on your own infrastructure where you can ask questions. And really that's effectively just a capital expense. You bought a computer, it's sitting there doing some stuff for you. The other area that we're seeing a lot of demand for at the moment is just around privacy. A lot of people, have a big question marks around security with AI right now. And look, a lot of that is well-founded. There are question marks because all of these companies need as much training data as they can get to make these models better. People are a bit nervous about what they're going to do with the data that's provided. And to give you an example, here at Raygun, our internal policy is that anyone in the team can use ChatGPT, but we ask that they never submit anything that has PII data, including about the team, any sort of internal data that is identifiable back to Raygun. So, for example, I'm quite happy for it to analyze, say, Google click data, for example, but we're unlikely to upload information about customers into there, that sort of thing. While we built this server internally, which consists of a bunch of 4090 graphics cards hosting open source models, we can put our business data in that and have a good play around with that, knowing, look, at the end of the day, it's inside our business. We could just delete the data if we wanted in there. And lastly, Ryan, I'll just tack on to that. For more of the corporate clients, we're seeing a lot of them starting to go with players like Microsoft for Azure OpenAI. And so this is where you can kind of get the trust that you would expect from a player like Microsoft with the innovation that you would expect from a more nimble startup like OpenAI. So that's kind of your mid-place.
Yeah, nice. That's really interesting. Obviously, there are a lot of options and pros and cons on either side that you've touched on as well. One of the things that occurs to me is that AI is so accessible using ChatGPT or LLMs. Believe you referred to them as closed source models. Because all companies can actually interact with these, there's obviously a few levels here. Like, one is like, you probably should for the future, but the second is, how can you do that in a way that creates a point of differentiation for you or a competitive advantage? Because partially it's about just, that all boats rising, I guess is the way to describe it. The other is actually, how do you use this to create a commercial advantage rather than just keep up?
Yeah. We'll pause here because I just want to make sure I'm understanding the core question for a second. So are you sort of asking more along the lines of how should you look at this if you were looking at maybe building an AI first thing, or how do you get advantage in your business just by using them?
I think it's, how do you get advantage? Because everyone's going to just start using AI, but it's like, how do you actually use it? So you're like, oh, you should choose us over this company now. Yeah.
Cool. So the question is, how do you really take advantage of AI today? To get an edge with your business and whatnot. The reason I talked a little bit earlier about the cultural side of this is because today everybody is learning. I use a lot of analogies back to the internet in the 90s. And that's why I think the edge at the moment is to try and get your team to become as AI native as possible. So again, maybe it's a younger audience, but transport yourself back to about 1996, 1997, and the businesses that could take advantage of the internet earlier were the ones that benefited the most from it, because there's an asymmetry in understanding. We can see where the puck is going. AI is not going to go away at all. So the longer you wait to sort of try and upskill your team in your own understanding, the more benefit you're giving to competitors that are exploring that technology. And in the case of like the AI week, as I say, the first and foremost, I want the team to be able to use ChatGPT to answer questions, to shift that muscle memory, because even down to the fact that the team are now able to move more quickly, that provides a benefit. Speed is frankly sexy, and success, is to move quickly. If you can try more things in the same amount of time, you're more likely to win. Aside from that, we're now sort of looking at the next level up, which is to say, okay, what parts of our business could we actually look to start automating? And so this is the next level above LLMs. This is what's typically referred to as agent-based technologies. So, at the end of the day, an LLM is really a question and answer system, right? And it gives pretty good answers most of the time. Agents are where you kind of string together complete capabilities with these things. So this might be an example where you see folks going, maybe it's a customer support bot, and it analyzes the request. Maybe it auto sets a priority. Maybe it suggests a response. Maybe you trust it enough to send a response, but maybe it puts the what's known as the human in the loop. Like, I love the idea of, I want to be able to come into work in the morning and have Slack pop up and say, hey, these things happen, approve, decline, approve, decline with try again with this extra context, and have the computer do the work. And so we're really looking at it through the lens of going, right, well, we all know it now at Raygun how to use ChatGPT. We have skilled people here who know how to build agents to leverage LLMs. How much toil can we subtract from our business? And one really important thing that I want to emphasize as well, Ryan, is that there's a lot of negativity around, hey, this is going to cost jobs. The way we think about it at Raygun is more about, hey, this is going to scale you up. This is like putting you in the Iron Man suit. So, you want to, rather than going, oh my goodness, people are going to kind of lose jobs, what you want to do is be able to say, hey, we're a 20-person company, 30-person company, 50-person company. But you know what? We can out-operate a 10,000-person company now.
Yeah.
That is the great democratizer that is coming. The people that I think possibly should be worried should probably be the people that are in the massive corporations. Like, if there are 5,000 people doing what you're doing, that is a huge incentive to automate that away.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think there is a lot of negativity and scaremongering in the space in terms of just how much AI will impact the common person and their opportunities to be employed. And I much prefer your take in terms of, actually it's going to help you be a lot better. And the reality is that most of us don't like doing banal sort of repetitive work, right? We all like to feel fulfilled and engaged. And so the ability to have some of that taken off you while doing the funner, probably more engaging parts of your role is really exciting. Obviously, the tech sector in New Zealand has undergone enormous growth. I think at the last Kiwi SaaS conference, Southern SaaS conference, they were saying that by about 2032, it should 4x in size. What would your blanket advice be to all tech companies in New Zealand in terms of just like what they should do tomorrow regarding AI?
So it's a great question. What should you do tomorrow if you're running a tech business in New Zealand? Look, firstly, one of the things that I want to acknowledge is I think a lot of tech people are missing this trend. They're smart people and they don't realize that they're also afraid. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of technologists that are going, yeah, but it's not perfect yet. Best way I can tell you have no vision. You think because it's not perfect today, it's not going to be perfect tomorrow, right? And so I'm seeing a lot of techies who are kind of going, no, it's not the future, it's not perfect, it's not great. I'll tell you, as the person who receives billions of software faults every month from our customers, humans aren't perfect either. These machines are coming, and the longer that you keep your head in the ground, the more likely you are to be run over, right? And so we do have some time, but the longer you leave it to actually try and upskill and understand how to leverage this, the higher the chance you become a roadkill. It's as simple as that. And like, folks can sit there and argue about it all day long, but they will. Like, it's like, fine, you know. One of the things that blew me away in COVID, right, was when you saw this explosion in e-commerce and people going, oh, we need to get online. I'll tell you right now, you do not have 30 years to learn about AI, all right? The cycle times are accelerating dramatically, and the people that will be just put out of business and completely replaced are the ones that are ignoring this level of innovation. One of the things that I've noticed, you know, I'm not super old, but I'm not that young. I'm in my 40s. I've seen sort of 2 or 3 of these hyper cycles now, and every single time they get faster. And I don't know that the human mind is really capable of understanding true exponential innovation. You know, at the moment, even if you said, but it's not perfect today, right? Okay, in a year's time, NVIDIA will be charging you effectively half the price for double the compute, right? These things are currently compute limited. In a year's time, there's going to be better training data. In a year's time, the software engineers are going to have solved for improving the algorithms. You know, in a year's time, people are going to be more capable at using these things. In a year's time, more people are going to have built agents to leverage these things. Every single one of these things accelerates this, right? And then you combine like 5 or 6 levels of acceleration all on top of each other. And to use a stat used by Elon Musk recently, he's like, you're seeing about a 10x improvement every 6 months. That's a 100x improvement every year, right? This is why I think a lot of people, especially people who think they're really clever, you know, are kind of going, oh, no, this is just a pattern matching to this will take a while. Things that improve at 100x a year do not take a while. And I particularly loved an analogy I heard recently, which was like, to understand the pace of innovation that's occurring in AI, imagine that Henry Ford released the Model T Ford in like 1905. And then like the next week he released the Model S with full self-driving, right? Like that's what we're up against. And look, I know we don't want to turn this into a like be afraid thing, but let's be really, really honest. These things are improving. They can do a bunch of work. And the way that I encourage people to think about this is imagine you have a colleague. Now, today your colleague is an intern. They don't know very much. They make a lot of mistakes. But imagine that intern doubles their capability every year. And then imagine when it gets to performance review time, that intern says, you know what, boss? Halve my salary. That's what we're all competing with, right? And we're just going, well, because they're an intern today, that's not a threat. No. That's what all human beings are about to compete with. And then I hear some people say, well, hang on, this is only software. This is only going to affect knowledge workers. No, the robots are like 2 to 3 years after that. These things can go into them. All labor, all human labor is going to be automated.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and the reality is it is a little bit scary to think of change of that scale, but no doubt the future holds some pretty exciting outcomes. And everyone is really scared it might be the case that we all end up with more time and better work-life balance and all of these other things as well, right? Technology, like, predominantly has empowered us rather than made our lives worse, and perhaps we should take the optimistic view that AI will do the same. That's what I'd like to think, to sleep well at night anyway.
Yeah, I guess your point is AI inherently good or bad? And my observation throughout life is usually that for the most part, for every part something that's good, it has an equal and opposite bad potential. And so there is usually the pearl clutchers that want to just avoid everything because there is a downside. And you're right, there is potential for massive upside out of these improvements. The idea of things like universal basic income, when we're talking about that, when it's only humans doing the work, you are talking about a zero-sum game. For me to get UBI, you need to do work to pay me, right? It's as simple as that. And look, I understand the attraction of it, but when it's zero-sum, it will feel inherently unfair to everybody, right? When you have the machines doing the work, it's not necessarily unfair. And what's quite cool about this, and the underlying power of it, is that it uncaps the size of the global economy from the human headcount, right? So this is the first time in history that we've really been able to start saying, hey, we could potentially be growing GDP while shrinking the human population potentially, which is kind of bananas. The biggest concern I have out of this is actually around governance and the government layer. The reason I say that is obviously, look, government is not technologists. I don't expect them to be technologists. They're there to try and suit the will of the people. And I would take a pretty good bet that there is a large amount of social upheaval that is pending off the back of this over the next 10 years. And there's a saying I really like, Ryan, which is, if you have to eat a shit sandwich, don't nibble, like, get it done. And my biggest concern is we're going to start seeing the disruption and the pace that government works at. We're going to be nibbling that shit sandwich for a wee while. And unfortunately, that's probably where human misery kind of creeps into the equation. So the more we can do to sort of both innovate and accelerate the advent of AI, good. The more things we can do to ensure we're educating our communities, and in particular our governments, into how to think about the solutions to when this starts to have impact, good. And that really comes down to the individual. And this loops back to your other question of what should you do today? The main thing is don't put your head in the sand, like, run at these things. And I can say, look, even in our own all hands meeting, when we first decided to kick off the AI week, setting a direction for the team that we were going to run at this thing that we were a little bit nervous about was massively freeing and motivating to the team. It was like, okay, you know what? We've got a plan. And having a plan is half the battle.
Yeah, great words. And I think that's really insightful. We definitely do need to just be leaning in, biting off more than we can chew, I suppose, is one way to think about it, or nibbling rather than just taking a big old bite. Just to finish off, I guess one of the hard things with AI is that it's not really necessarily easy to understand or score how you're operating, or if you're using enough AI or if you're not. Do you have any insight into how a tech company across Australia or New Zealand could benchmark themselves on their use of AI and know if they're integrating it successfully?
Yeah, that's a great question. What would be the benchmarks to understand if you're leveraging AI well? Look, I'm not entirely sure of any sort of sort of respected or known benchmark here. I'm sure McKinsey & Co will come and try and sell you an answer to this without having one. But, look, at the end of the day, I would look at it through the lens of scaling that impact. So I would fully anticipate that in a business that is able to dramatically leverage AI, that the revenue per employee skyrockets. When we look at the megatechs, they're typically in the sort of $1 to $2 million of revenue per employee. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying, and I would believe it, that, we think we're probably looking at a future where you're going to see the first billionaire that was a one-man band, right? Because you can leverage these systems and scale a person substantially. They are getting better every single day. And so I would probably look at that as a metric. Aside from maybe being a measure of AI, frankly, it's also just a good measure of business efficacy. Particularly if you're a product business, it's usually a huge mistake to scale on headcount, and yet it's so common because it's humans like to feel like they're building a big team, and that's how they feel power and significance, and we have to fight against that sort of behavior. So if you're a product business in particular, I would look at revenue per employee as a measure. If you're a services business, look, there's a lot of challenges out there because, in effect, the team should be able to deliver customer value a lot faster. The cost of building things through services businesses should drop dramatically. That probably means that there's less need for so many services businesses because they can each now get a lot more done. Having said that, the opportunity, if I was a services operator myself, would be in education. The reason I say that is, look, we saw multi-billion-dollar businesses get built in sort of the 2014 to 2020 around helping the tech industry understand how to leverage the cloud, right? The cloud had already been around for a decade, and the tech industry, relatively speaking, is a very tiny industry compared to the whole world. AI is the whole bloody world, and everybody needs to learn it. So if I was building some sort of services organization, I would try to be ahead of the ball on AI, because the people who aren't in tech need as many people in tech to help them understand how to leverage it themselves.
Yeah, really, really great, insightful answer, JD. Just to finish up, hey, thank you so much for your time. You've really given me heaps to think about and had some really detailed answers. You obviously do a lot of thinking about this in your own time and research as well. What would be the best way that we can sort of follow you to find out more of your thoughts and see how the journey progresses at Raygun?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find because I have a fairly unique name. So it's John-Daniel Trask, Trask. I'm also on Twitter as Trask JD, Trask JD. I'm really excited about the AI journey that's ahead of everybody. And that's the thing I keep saying to people: nobody today is an expert, not even me. We're all learning this stuff as we go. So I really appreciate that opportunity to speak a little bit to your audience, Ryan, and have this chat today. Thank you so much.